In the late 1960s, a killer emerged in Northern California, sending fear rippling through the community, a fear that has never fully dissipated. A killer whose identity remains a mystery to this very day. He didn't just commit murders. He taunted police, sending letters, cryptic ciphers, and chilling threats, daring the authorities to catch him. This was no ordinary killer. This was the Zodiac Killer. But who is the Zodiac? And why has he become one of the most notorious figures in American criminal history? Let's dive into the chilling story of the Zodiac Killer, a man whose trail went cold, leaving a legacy that still haunts us decades later. It all began on December 20th, 1968. On a cold night in a quiet area near Vallejo, California, 17-year-old Betty Lou Jensen and her boyfriend, 16-year-old David Faraday, were parked on a secluded road. What was meant to be an innocent evening quickly turned into a nightmare when an unknown figure approached their car. Without warning, the stranger shot both teens at point-blank range. He didn't just leave them for dead. He meticulously drove off, leaving no obvious motive behind the brutal attack. Police were baffled. There was no robbery, no clear reason, just murder. But this was only the beginning. Less than 7 months later, on July 4th, 1969, another young couple would become his next victims. On the night of July 4th, 1969, two teenagers, Darlene Farron and Michael Mageau, were shot while parked in a remote area of Blue Rock Springs Park in Vallejo. Just like before, the killer struck swiftly, shooting Darlene Farron and Michael Mageau in their car. Miraculously, Michael survived, though he was severely wounded. But it wasn't just the victims that haunted the investigation. Days later, the Zodiac took it to a whole new level. He sent a letter to the San Francisco Chronicle claiming responsibility for the attack. But he didn't stop there. He included a cryptic cipher, a series of letters and numbers that no one could make sense of. This letter wasn't a simple confession. It was a challenge. The Zodiac taunted police with every new letter, daring them to crack the code. He promised that if they solved it, they would learn more about him. But the Zodiac was not just sending cryptic messages. He was becoming more brazen. In August 1969, less than 2 months after the Blue Rock Springs shooting, another letter arrived. This time, it was addressed to the San Francisco Chronicle. The Zodiac claimed responsibility for the deaths of Jensen and Faraday and included more ciphers. But this time, he threatened even worse. The Zodiac promised to kill more people unless his letters were published. His tone was cold, calculated, almost playful. He mocked the police, calling them incompetent. He seemed to enjoy the idea of being hunted, of being the predator. And yet, despite all his messages, the police were still no closer to identifying him. In 1970, the Zodiac sent even more letters. This time, the ciphers seemed even more complex, but the killer didn't just stop with letters. He began making more terrifying threats. One of his letters even threatened to murder a school bus full of children. This was no longer about just taunting police. The Zodiac was savoring the fear he caused. And it worked. People across California began to lock their doors at night. Parents warned their kids about the man lurking in the shadows. By 1971, the Zodiac had become infamous. He was no longer just a killer. He was a symbol of fear. His letters were published in newspapers across the state, each one a reminder that the police still had no idea who he was. Then, in 1974, something changed. The Zodiac's killing stopped. No more murders. No more letters. The case grew cold. Police had no leads, and as time passed, the fear began to fade. The Zodiac faded into the shadows of California's history, but his story was far from over. In the 1980s, investigators tried to reopen the case. They pieced together all the evidence, all the letters, the ciphers, the sketch of the killer, but they never found him. Years passed, decades even. The Zodiac Killer became a part of California folklore, a terrifying story passed down from generation to generation. His identity remained a mystery until 2018. In 2018, A groundbreaking new technique in forensic science was used to crack open one of the oldest cases in the United States. Investigators used genetic genealogy to investigate cold cases. And that's when the Zodiac Killer's name appeared on the radar once again. A breakthrough in forensic technology led authorities to a man named Gary Francis Post, who was believed to have had a hand in the Zodiac's murders. But even after decades of investigating, the case is still open. The Zodiac's true identity remains one of the biggest unsolved mysteries in American crime history. The Zodiac Killer is not just a mystery. It's a haunting chapter in American crime that leaves a chilling question. Who is the man behind the mask? If you have any thoughts or theories about the Zodiac, leave them in the comments below. This case might be cold, but the search for answers continues.